This is my 1991 XF Falcon Ute. We dragged this guy out of a paddock, but this time on back shed, we're putting it back on the road. Stick around and we'll take a look. So this is my XF, and if you haven't seen it from the previous episode, we dragged this guy out of a Western New South Wales paddock. I brought him home, we knocked some ugly off it with a canopy, some stripes. Then we lowered him down, tried to add a little bit of cool to it. Nice. But there's still a few other issues before it can actually hit the road, the most of which being a leaking exhaust. It has a horrendous exhaust leak. Dad said, have a listen to this thing. But I did see an idler arm that wasn't great, a ball joint that was pretty much flogged out. So anyway, how about we stop talking and start working? Let's get into it. So I'll show you exactly what we're dealing with the exhaust. And I know these guys might look like little holes, but they're actually spot welds. But the reason I bring your attention to these, look at the swelling. And here. And there. I would say this thing has backfired and blew this muffler apart at the seams. There. It's actually nearly pulled that spot weld right through. Everywhere there's a seam. Yeah, look at that. Look how pushed out that is. Anyway, that's our first point of call. We're going to fix all this leaking exhaust. And if you remember from last episode, that would be consistent with us swapping the Dizzy. If they've had timing issues with that EST distributor, has it backfired and done that? I'd say so. I'm not going to try and repair that one. I'm going to cut it out, put a sports muffler in it, but let's get into it. I've just bought a little bit smaller sports muffler. When I say smaller, it's not shorter, it's the same length, just so I can cut that pipe, fit it to this guy, and I'll weld this end by the look of that. I can undo it from there and just weld this pipe in. And this backside's clamped with a funky bracket, so I might get that exhaust out, fit this guy on, tack him in the right spot, and then we'll worry about this tailpipe, how crazy I've got to get with it. Anyway. Let's get into it. Oh, we've got to remember to re-torque our U-bolts too. If you remember, we fitted them last episode. I've done some Ks, I've nipped them up, but we might nip them again. That doesn't feel great. I can sense a snapping bolt coming on. Oh no, it's all good. And when I get this muffler off, I'll probably cut that bracket off, bolt it all back up with the new muffler in there, and just weld that bracket back on for support, because that's really the only bracket from way back there to right up at the engine. So I better put that one back in place. See if I can get this undone. She's going to take some coaxing. I might have to give him a bit of a tap and see if I can jam a flat blade down the side of that. He doesn't want to budge. Hit the damn thing, Michael. Might chop him off. I'll cut him off. I haven't quite cut him right through. It might give me enough. I can take the whole show out. Come on. Hanging by a thread. It's not. Now it's hanging by a tailpipe. I might just undo that and knock the whole show out, I think. Probably make it easier. Why would that one be different size to the other one? Yep, different size. There you go. If I can get him out into the vise, it'll probably make it a bit easier. Because that's pretty tight. I might even be able to weld something. Oh no, I'll get enough leverage on the muffler. I'll put the pipe in the vise. And just swing off the muffler. Hit it with a hammer, destroy it, whatever. And if I can get it to twist on that, I'll just hit it here, hit it there, try and get it out, up, down. Just be easier than doing it under there. Yeah, look here, it's going already. So all I'm trying to do is twist the body. You see it's moving already. So I'm just going to clean the end of that up. Then I'll just sit my new muffler on, tack him in place, then remove the full section, weld him up properly, and then we'll worry about the bracket and the tailpipe after that. So we'll get this cleaned up. That's not very nice tacking, but it's tacked. That was much better. Yes, much better. I can see the issue though. I'm going to undo it here, and that gasket's going to fall apart. more price to pay. New gasket, it'll be fine. I've got to get the ball joint anyway. I'm just going to undo it from here. And I heated that up, so that's kind of hot. And take the whole thing off and weld it up properly, rather than try and weld it in the car and miss a pinhole at the top and have to do it 67 times. Which I only know that will happen because I've done it many times. I've got to get a ball joint for up the front here anyway, and it's pretty bad. I will show you that in a sec. So I may as well just get a gasket while I'm at it. This is the ball joint. Watch up there as if I lift the tyre. You can see it there. It's just all moving. It's flogged out. I'll check those bottom ones, but yeah, I've got to get that anyway, so I may as well get a gasket. I'll just clean off the back of the two flanges for the new gasket. See if we can't get him back together. I was lucky enough that the other half is actually in town now, and she's bringing me home a gasket. Saved me running in there. I've got to get other stuff anyway, but not right now. This is more important right now. Gasket's a little bit different, but it'll work, I think. As long as I put it in the right way, it'll work. I'll nip it up tight in a second once I get that bracket on. It's going to work, but that ain't right. I'm the wrong side of that shock, aren't I? Yes, Mike, you are the wrong side of that shock, you idiot. Go again. Go again. Oh, that's better. I might just mark that and see how much engagement I've got. That's all it wants to go in, but it might be enough. It's gone into there, but I don't know how much is actually in the muffler. Oh, heaps. Like heaps and heaps. Talk about butterfingers today. I dropped that nut 3 times. Luckily I found it every time. Usually they hit the ground and that's the last you ever see of them. You hear them, it's like the concrete just swallows them. Gone. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Anytime you put a new muffler on, you have to start it before you put the tailpipe back on. I didn't do it. That's like a fail in every sense of the word. I didn't start it. And get that clamp out of the way. But I'm going to go in on an angle on this. Because the original muffler was wider, this tube was slightly further over. And so I've rolled that pipe a little. So that can't come straight down, it's going to hit on there. So I'm just going to push him over a bit and just come straight down there, straight along the thicker part there. And my clamp will still fit, so that'll be good enough for me. I'll get me welder. It's funny when you're a kid, even if you knew, well, not even when you're a kid, right now, even if you knew it was going to sound like crap, you still started it with no exhaust. It's like an unsaid rule. Thou shalt start motor without exhaust on. Oh. I have to get something to hold that with. It's going to be hot. I feel like the most sensible thing I've ever done. Not burn myself on a hot weld. I'm actually a bit filthy on myself for not doing that. Never know, it might have sounded good. Might sound like absolute crap too. So not quite the success just yet. I just ran it and instantly you could hear an exhaust leak. It's actually up here. It's at the top of this new gasket. And also I'm thinking is that that's had a few hits. So that's actually pushed up, so when the surfaces are butted up, it's not tightening in at the top as much as the bottom. So I'm actually going to back it off, get a bar in there and try and pull that down a little, even if I have load on it while I do it up. But I might put a couple of... The other thing I thought is, are these nuts bottoming out? Is that gasket thinner than the old one? Doesn't look it. Yeah, maybe it is. Because that'll be compressed and that one's not. Maybe it is. So I'm going to get a couple of washers. It doesn't have them from factory. It's got these flat backed nuts. But, so there we go. I'll just put a couple of washers on it. You know, and flex it. Now it's backed off. You can actually even see it's rising up a little, so maybe I'll just flex him down and do him up as is. I think that's a shot. Just pull it down like that and do her up. I'll probably cause another leak up there by doing it, but whatever. Is that gasket too big? It was a little bit different. Let's see if that looks any better. Nope, doesn't look any better at all actually. We'll see. With those multi-layer gaskets, you can generally tell if they're taken up because they'll separate. I'll show you. See the bottom there? It looks like it's coming apart. That's as it's squeezing it in, it's just opening it up and all the way around there. Well, I can just feel that one starting to separate up the top there. So hopefully I've got that. I might just give it another little nip. Famous last words as I snap the head off it. But anyway, I'll just give it one last little... See how it goes. Yeah, let's start. Yep, she'll be right. She'll be right. She's pretty quiet. didn't necessarily want this one now, but I don't think we've got that new muffler to blame for that. I think that massive big catalytic converter is probably what we've got to blame for the quietness. Thank you, emissions. And one thing while it's running, it still sort of stumbles around a little bit at idle, and I wanted to just check the timing, but because I don't have a 0 on the balancer, I don't actually know where a 0 is, so I'm not going to get the light out yet. What I'm going to do is I've backed off the clamp to hold the distributor. I'm just going to try and bring him up a little bit by eye. I'm just going to try and bring him up a little bit by ear and see if I can just improve, number one, the timing, number two, the idle. So we'll just see how we go. So to me, that stumbling sounds a little bit retarded, so I'm actually going to go anti-clockwise with the distributor and just see if the idle rises. Here it's coming up. What I'm going to do is go to the point where it sounds the highest and then just come back a fraction, then we'll check the timing. What it's doing is, as it's stumbling, coming into good timing, and then as it comes to the highest point, goes past that, it stumbles again, where you come back into the highest point and just back a fraction more. You'll hear it though. It went up, and you can hear it coming back down. So I'm going to go into the nice timing area. Just come back a fraction. Should be a little bit more responsive now too. Hear how it's holding on to revs though? I'd say it's still too advanced the way it's holding on to that rev, but we'll check. That could also be a sign of a vacuum leak. And now that that's all ridiculously hot, I'll try and get my hand down there and lock that distributor back up. And you might be like, why didn't you just go to the timing light? Well, there was so much going on last time. Different distributor. I don't actually have a 0 on the timing marks, so I just lined it up close enough. There was a lot going on. So to try and gauge it by ear to start with, especially if your balancer is slipped. If you can gauge it by ear and get an idea. Like I said, as I was turning that distributor cap anti-clockwise, it's adding advance, and you could actually hear the revs come up into a peak and then drop out the other side. Well, that's once you're too advanced, then you come back to the peak and just back it down a little. Clearly I didn't go back far enough, it was still really advanced. We'll see how it goes here. The one test, ignoring the timing mark in case it has slipped the balancer, but the one test is now get it out on the road, put it in say 3rd or 4th gear and ease your foot into it. If you can hear a pinging, actually I should leave a lot of timing into it and do that just so you could hear it. But anyway, if you can hear what's called pinging or advanced timing, then you know, just take 2 more out of it, go for a drive. 2 more out of it, go for a drive. That's probably the way to time it if you ever do have a failed balancer. It used to be a pretty common thing with like 202s and that sort of stuff. They used to spit them out all the time. It's really hot on my forearm, like really, really hot. Like I'm trying to hurry, it's that hot. That would probably explain, being a little bit retarded, why it was getting hot on the last episode. But we're still going to pull that thermostat apart. That's another thing with these, with a horizontal thermostat. They build up so much gunk in the bottom of that thermostat. Come on, help me out here, I'm burning. Could always walk away from it and come back, I guess, but righto. Distributor's locked back down. I'm relatively happy with that. And like I was saying, when you were opening the throttle and the revs take a while to come back down, that can be two things. It can be one, a little bit too much advanced timing. It can also be a vacuum leak somewhere. I've backed that off. It seemed to be okay, but I guess we'll find out. Let's, while it's warm, I'll get him out, drop the coolant, flush the cooling system, check that thermostat. We'll do that. So it's warm enough that I can take the cap off without anything coming up, which you might go, don't take the cap off. I ran it for 2 minutes. Honestly, it's just got a little bit of warmth in it. I want to get that thermostat on, but I don't, and I want to flush the system, but I don't want to run freezing cold water through a warm engine. I might just wait for it to settle down, but that doesn't mean we can't start undoing a few things to flush out this radiator. Oh, my new radiator hose should be in. This one's that one I butchered up last episode. It's actually touching on the alternator. Hopefully the other half brought that home too, with the gasket. I'll have a look in the bag. Still pretty warm, so I won't go pouring it all over myself just yet. It's actually remarkably clean. So I really want to see that thermostat now. Well, that's what I've got to do too. Rad brackets. That's that one. We'll go have a look for this other one. Yep. Radiator hose, Falcon 6-cylinder with aircon and ball joint. So that's our next two. Geez, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't bad for just... Oh no, it wasn't great. Whatever. Yeah, geez, the only real difference in it's the... well, where it was hitting the alternator, of course. Yeah, righto. We'll get that back on in a minute. We'll knock this thermostat out. I could be overthinking the overheating thing completely. It could just be the fact that it's a shitty radiator that I found in the back of a ute out in a paddock. Could be just that. There's a reason it was in the back of the ute, Michael. That's basically brand new. Damn it. I was hoping that was full of crap. Have a guess what that is. Really hot. I've had cooling issues with this. That is about the coolest thermostat you can put in something. That worries me now. Let's put it back in and forget it. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. And yes, I'm reusing that gasket because it looks new. Like, really good. Maybe not new. Also had overheating issues, you idiot. There was no radiator in it. You know what I mean. I've tried to sort out something first. Could have just had a blocked radiator and pulled it out to get it repaired and went, it's how much? And then just not bothered repairing it. But nothing came out of that radiator. That was clean. Thermostat's clean. Thermostat's basically new. 160 Fahrenheit, 71 Celsius. I think what I'll do is button it back up. That timing will be better now. Bleed it. That's one thing we have to do, is bleed the damn thing. Go from there. That's good. Wonder what difference. Well, maybe the alternator sits higher with aircon, so they had to have the step up in the aircon pipe, because this one did say with aircon. And what I'm saying about the bleeding it, as more modern cars, well, as the styling of more modern cars had more of a slopey nose, went from where old school stuff, your motor's down here, your radiator's up here. Well, now the top of the tank is basically level with the thermostat housing. So you really want to either jack the nose of it right up, and that was because the bonnet was so slopey, it dropped everything down. But now if you jack the nose up, you can sometimes bleed them a lot easier. Anyway, that should be good to go if we bleed that now. Oh, except for the clamps. I remember that every time I wriggle the radiator and it moves about 1.5 inches. And like I say, I was going to stick the hose up the end of the radiator hose there, try and flush the block, but I'm not going to do that. That was as clean as anything what came out of that. You have seen me do that before with the HQ. It is pretty beneficial if you've run the thing and you drop the hose and you see a lot of rusty water come out. It is pretty beneficial to do that then. Don't do it when it's really hot, but after it's been run a few times, but I'm not bothering. It's clean. I must be confident I'm putting coolant straight in it. It actually ran that well. I'm confident enough to put that carburetor, or the air cleaner back on. I think. I did spend a fair bit of time cleaning that carby, well, the cheeky way, just running the carby cleaner through it and just literally running it. Could be the radiator's full of cobwebs, that could be one thing. I'll run her over here, put its nose up on the concrete, and hopefully that's enough to get the nose up high. We'll see. I ain't kidding, I'm putting the air cleaner on it. And that's kind of a small victory for me, to be honest, because I didn't want to pull that Weber apart, and I ran about 3 cans of carby cleaner through that, and it seems fine. Well, that's what I haven't done. Remember, this has got one of those fancy air cleaners that you don't throw away, you wash. I haven't done it. I'll probably have to do that. Anyway, I'll do that after. Right now, this can go on. My small victory didn't last long. My small victory didn't last at all, actually. When I was taking this air cleaner off in the last video, it's supposed to be a bolt there, and I went, oh, don't even have to take that one out. It's not there, it doesn't exist. Well, the reason I have one there is to stop this. All 3 of them are stripped from vibration. The bolt's fine, thread in the carburetor stripped, so that's all that was holding it on. I guess I'll take it back off. Not a big deal. I'll just have to run some dies down there and get some bigger nuts, but bigger bolts. Right, keep going. It seems okay, and it's about to start raining again. So I figure if we're going to get wet, while it's out here, I might chuck it up on stands and pressure clean underneath, ready for painting underneath and doing that ball joint tomorrow. So that's it, it's definitely beer time. It's actually well past beer time. I spent a bit more time washing that than I thought I was going to. It didn't seem that bad when I was under there, but nope. I think I brought back half of West New South Wales with me. Re-topsoiled the driveway when I washed down the concrete. Anyhow, that's ready for tomorrow. Ball joint, idler arm, I'll show you them in the morning. The idler's really bad. And then I guess we'll get that done and we'll get it painted. We'll paint him underneath, and that's pretty much finished underneath. 2 good little jobs today, well 3. Cooling system, it's bled up. It's, you know, I've still got my apprehensions on it, but it should be right. The exhaust, really good job to get done. And the timing has more or less showed me the carburetor, although I did the carburetor the cheeky way. I removed nothing and just drenched it with carby cleaner for a lot. I ran a lot of fuel through that just to try and clean it, but just bringing that timing around a little has made it run a lot nicer at idle. I don't know, you're like, why didn't you just chuck a timing light on that to start with? Well, it's because I genuinely believe that balancer has moved somewhat. I set that up top dead center and it's way off, like way off. When I started pulling that in by ear, I had to pull in a lot of movement, a lot of timing. And what I was saying about, you could hear it, you actually hear the idle peak and then start dropping away. That's as you're bringing advanced time in and then you've gone too far. Well, then you bring it back to the peak, back a couple of degrees out of it, and that's where I've locked it down at. And it is a good tool to have in your toolbox, and by toolbox I mean your brain, of course, because if you do come across one with a slipped balancer and it's only got to slip a couple of degrees, not worthy of replacing the balancer unless they're really walking themselves off. But you can time it, run it like that for God knows how long. If they're starting to separate, of course you've got to replace them. But that could have been the reason it was parked. They could have been middle of a distributor swap, couldn't get it to run properly and just went, you know what, I'm out. It was a long way retarded, which does sort of make a bit of sense now. Looking back, hindsight's always a wonderful thing. I did have to open those throttle blades a long way. Well, that was overthinking it now. Anyhow, I'll stop gibbering on about timing and I'll see you in the morning. Bit of a change of plans this morning. I got my little helper with me and he's keen to get under the inside. So we're going to start tearing all this mess out. Get these seat covers out. Get the junk out of there. And just start cleaning him up. Half this stuff doesn't even belong in there. That's a Commodore dash. Just junk, wheel nuts. Let's pretty him up on the inside to match the outside. And I'm kind of glad the young bloke did say, hey Dad, can we start cleaning this? Because that'll work well. It's heating up out there and those seats are going to take a solid couple of days to dry, so it'll probably work well. We can get into the ball joint, the idler arm, you know, all the other little bits we've got to do, and we'll do that now. But I started out trying to do those seats by hand, but honestly, the time it was taking to try and do it by hand, and you think they're clean, and I'd actually finished them by hand and went, you know what, you can't beat the old pressure cleaner. It took 10 minutes to pull them out. I should have done it right from the start, and they're just different seats. They look really clean. Anyway, stop gibbering. Let's get into this ball joint. And the idler arm that we're going to replace is this guy here. If you watch the bottom there, there's a lot of movement just here. So that's only knock this guy off, then fight with that whole assembly to pull it down. And like I say, these are not overly difficult. It's just remove the cotter pins or split pins, whatever you want to call them. Remove the pins, and then your little castellated nut. Just undo them. Should be as simple as that. Won't be, because I said how simple they are. It'll be a pain in my ass, but geez, that is bad. That ball joint's bad too. I'll show you that one in a minute. I think I might have already showed you the ball joint, didn't I? I'll show you again in case you skip through. Just need a poker. All I've really done is unfolded your split pin, and then when you can get something, just jam it in the eye like that and just lever him out. Or maybe you can't, maybe you'll have 6 goes at it. Geez, this one's not happy. Got you now, you little frigger. Well, I've either got you or I'm going to snap you off, one of the two. It's always the way. Oh, these are pretty easy. That cotter pin's just like folded itself into some form of question mark. I'm questioning myself right now. Got ya. We'll just get a bit of heat and knock those. Might not even need heat on those ones. They don't look too good. How they go? Nowhere near. That'll be right. Second go. Nailed it. Yeah, that wasn't even tight, that one. She might need a good grease too. Some of those little dust covers are got little cracks in them. Might give him a good grease before we go too far. That one's falling apart. Oh, gee. Did I say it was going to be easy? It literally is falling apart. Is that even the right one? And I did just mark that before I put it in with just some arrows so I didn't cock it up. The reason I say was that one even the right one, the amount of slop on that pin was unbelievable. I'll actually put a bit of grease on that. Oh, Tell you one thing I did forget. When you got a hole in a bolt like that, see the hole there and the castellated nut? And I know I've done this one before if you've been here before, but just mark a line on the bottom of your joint, your nut, your bolt, whatever it is, because when you're screwing that guy in there, you're looking for the hole, looking all around the edge. At least if you've got a line along the bottom there, you don't have to go looking for it. So I'll do that. That one's easy, I can see him right there. And that one, there. Should be able to find them easy. Probably should have painted that arm, but we're going to paint everywhere in a minute anyway. Oh, that's better. Well, you'd want it to be better. It's brand freaking new. You'd want to be better. Be fairly disappointing if you went, well, that's worse. Done. It's had a little bit of work done. The 2 tie rods are replaced. Well, let's stop looking and just get into that ball joint, huh? Because it's got a fair bit of play in it. You can actually hear it. If you're watching just there, and I think I already showed you, but I'll show you again. And if you see, it's not a loose nut, the nut's traveling with it, it's actually internally in the joint. And I think there's a few stories to tell here too. The 2 patches we saw earlier, she's got a little weld all the way along there, as if they've sort of clipped something and repaired that up. And like I said earlier, she's been loved on. She's got olivine bushes here in the sway bar. There as well. That one needs doing up tighter. That's got a gap there. And I'd say it's had a ball joint in it too. See how the nuts on the bottom side of that one, but they're on the top side of that one. I'd say that one's an original. Dust bit's still alright, but flogged out. And this one, yeah, it's a lot softer. So that's been replaced as well. And like I said, those shocks were replaced as well. They're bright blue. So somebody has loved on it. Just not recently, that's all. That needs tightening up too. Anyway, we'll stop gibbering and get that ball joint out. Oh, come on. Bit of WD. Probably a couple of ways you could try and undo that ball joint, and that would be just hit him here. Can you see from my arm? Probably not. Hit him here, down, because that control arm is already bottomed out on the subframe, so he can't come down any further. So I might give him a little tap there, and yeah, I know that's hot. It's actually really hot. Might give him a little tap and see if he wants to drop out, but if not, I'll probably just get my ball joint separator. It's just 2 prongs and an arm, you just wind it together. Anyway, I'll give it a tap first. No, that's it anyway. That goes up ball joint side. That guy sits on the end of the ball joint thread, and just leave your nut a bit proud so that tip can't slide off. So if it catches on the edge of the castellator, it's not going to slide off. Just jam him in on top there. I'm going to give him a little bit of a whack. Alright, I'll give you a look. Come up here. And I know, pretty basic stuff for most, but you never know where people are starting. So if it helps anybody, that's your ball joint separator. That bottom arm is sitting on the end of that castellated nut, and the two prongs are up here. Plenty of gap in this one because he wants to separate. And now we're just going to wind that nut, and that will push this arm down and try and compress that in. Fair bit of force on it, so I'd say go carefully, but I'll just start winding that guy down. Oh, come on. Right, it all starts to catch fire. You know it's time to start doing this. I get it or break it? I got it. There you go. Thought my tool broke. That got him. Once you get a bit of pressure on it, you can give it another tap there, but obviously that one didn't need it. And one thing with spring above the upper control arm, there's no energy wanting to throw everything this way. It's not like a HQ or anything with the spring in here where you undo that and everything wants to force down. So I can literally undo that, except it's hot. Undo that, and then if I can get enough movement, I can pull that out, undo this ball joint. We might even have to lift that control arm up a little. I'll see. Actually, I don't know. Let's see what I could do. I could undo the ball joint first. Then I've only got to move it like 10 mil, not the full length of that. I might do that. I might undo this guy top first. Make it a damn sight easier if I can get it out like this. Oh, too much rust on that bolt to undo it with your fingers though. I was optimistic. Well, there you go. That's how we're going to get it. And I'm just going to do the same in reverse, going back in. Just see if I can pop him in there. And bounce him back in and see if I can line him up. I can't even get the damn nut on. How am I going to do that? Works pretty well actually. Looks pretty good to me. Let's do up that big boy and we're pretty much done. And grease him. Don't forget to grease him. That's still warm. Warm enough. It'll pull together. Where's my castellate? Oh jeez. That nut is almost on too far for the... I don't know, it'll be right. Don't overthink it. Grease gun, and that's it. Better go on everywhere within the joint. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, mess. I've got more around the ball joint than in it. Actually, I don't think I've got any in it. It's a story there. So I figured out and I'm sweating like a blind lesbian at a fish market. But I sorted it out. It was like the boot was sealing that well, was actually trapping air in there, wouldn't let the grease in. So I squished it, and you actually heard all the air come out, and now you can actually see it filling back up with grease. So we'll go around and do some others while I've got him up here. This ball joint, you can actually hear it, you can see the movement and hear it, but we might dissect him. I'll cut the rubber off and see if I can see if he's corroded or just plain worn out. This is where I take one of my fingers out, or my knee. It's almost beer time. I bet you's already having one, ain't you? Couldn't wait for me. Fair enough. Actually, that's pretty heavily rusted. If you see that bit there, it should probably be shiny. And it's not, it's actually got rust pitting. So even if you grease that up and it seemed fine for the time being, that surface rust is going to grind that away pretty quick. And so it might have lasted a little bit, but not long. And you'd be replacing him. Anyway, let's get on with it. What else are you gonna do? Probably heaps. Oh, tighten up those sway bars. And I just smear a bit of grease around that nolithane bush. Nolithane doesn't really like sitting around, and if it happens to grab because it's dry, it'll probably tear it to pieces. I still have got that wrong. I can't have, no, it's on, it's just holding my mouth wrong. It's probably the least of this car's worries, a dry sway bar rubber. But I did it anyway, just while I'm going. A little bit of grease won't hurt it. So we're getting down to the little jobs, and one that I know I've got to do. If you remember in the first episode, I zip tied the radiator in. It was the wrong radiator, but I zip tied it in just so we could get up and down the driveway. Well, I know I can get mounts. I just looked it up. I can get mounts, new old stock, off the internet, as long as I'm happy to wait 14 to 21 days postage. Nope. No, I'm not happy to wait. How about 4 o'clock this afternoon? How about just before beer time? Would that do? So I'm just going to make some. I'm not waiting for them. If I make something and it's good enough, I'll leave it. If it's kind of sketchy, then I guess I'll order some. But I found a heap of brackets. I just found a heap of metal brackets, and I'm kind of going to, I think I'm just going to weld a bolt into the back of that bracket and use the factory mounting point. And if I can bend it to come up and over the radiator, all it's got to do is hold it there. There's no force on it. It's just got to hold it down because it's got locating pins in the bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. So for now, I'm going to weld them. Well, I'm going to cut my zip ties and figure out which bracket I'm going to use and go from there. So if we get all these zip ties out of the way, which could be easier said than done, that one. Now the radiator should come back, and like I said, it's got mounting points at the bottom, so it can't come backwards. It's like a rubber ring with a point that goes into it, so it can't come backwards. So all I really have to do is hold that down and it can't go anywhere. And I think that's all the factory ones. See the holes there and there, or if you come out the front, it'll be there and there, and same on the other side. And those brackets just bolt through those holes and then come out over the core and just sit down over the top of the core. Well, at least that's what I can see from the new old stock brackets. And then the same on that side. So I'm going to start by taking something like maybe that and weld that through that hole. Like it'll go hang out there. That should bolt through, let's say that one, and then come out and over, and I've just got to make it sit down on top of that core. Should be easy, huh? So I'm just going to run a little step saw into this, see if I can't widen them out just enough. Oh, I might not even have to weld them. Might weld them anyway. It'd suck if I screwed them in there and they come undone. I'm just going to make the passenger side one double the width for a bit of strength, because it's kind of offset. I'm just going to nip him off. He's just a fraction long. And I reckon I'm just going to cut up these little plastic brackets. Plastic so it doesn't rub through if there's vibration, because they are almost the perfect depth of that there. So if I nip them off there, they might make nice little hold down wings. It's rain. Oh, my seats are out there. And it's stopped. The minute I got the seats in, it stopped. But if we get another day like today, I'll be putting them in tomorrow afternoon. They feel dry. I'm sure they're not right inside, but they feel pretty dry. That one's not working properly. Oh, here it comes again. It needs a little bit more of a bend in him. If I can get the nut on that, I'm just about done. They're not great, but I've held it. That one's a bit cockeyed actually. I'll ignore it. So they're a bit sketchy, but holds it in place. They'll do. And the other thing I wanted to try and squeeze in today is, if you remember, I found all of these little holes, or these little threads, they were all stripped. And if you look at that one there, it's actually got a helicoil in it. So this has been an issue. That not being bolted down has allowed it to vibrate. I'll show you why that wasn't bolted up. It's because if you look there, the nut's gone. That should have had a nut in one side of it, and you screwed a, I don't know, 3/8 10 mil bolt into there through that little bracket there. But he's disappeared somewhere, broken off inside. So I'm going to weld a bolt to that air cleaner and do it the reverse way, unless I can get my hand in there. No, maybe not. No, I'll just weld a bolt to it, just while I got the welder out. So he's just welded on the bottom. I'll just undo that nut now, take that off, put the bracket on, maybe a couple of washes, but it'll work. And that guy with the helicoil in it is going to be fine because the original bolt that actually mounts the top of the air cleaner. But I found these little fellas and they're ever so slightly bigger, so they're actually going to work okay. I can just get him to thread in there and then they tighten up. But that guy's too long. This guy will be fine because he's got a hole in the bottom, but that goes into the body of the choke. So I need to trim one of these guys up. As small as he is, I've got to trim it shorter. I've had a bit of a rethink on that because it's not quite the same thread. It's trying to thread itself as it goes in. If I cut that, that's going to make it awful hard to thread it. I could screw it in, so I'm going to go full sketchy. I'll actually put a nut on it, so now it's essentially made the thread length shorter. So I think between the gasket, the air cleaner and my sketchy little nut, it'll work just fine. So that's the helicoiled one. Mint. We'll put some washers on that guy and straighten him back up. He's a little bit crooked. It's obviously been a bit of an ongoing issue. You watch tomorrow, it won't start. I'll have carburetor issues tomorrow. That was very negative of you, Michael. Yes, it was. It's probably right though. She needs a bit of straightening. I'm going to need a fairly substantial washer. What size do you reckon that is, Michael? Maybe ½ inch? Nailed it. So I've earned every ounce of this today. Heaps of little jobs, like heaps of little ones. Paint underneath, the ball joint, the idler arm, the carburetor. That was a big one too. I wasn't real sure what I was going to do with that, but anyway, those little screws threaded in really nice. The radiator, I know that those brackets are a bit sketchy, but you guys are like your stock factory components. I'll order the new old stock brackets maybe later on. Nope. If we get another day tomorrow like we did today, those seats feel dry. I pulled them out when I thought it was going to rain and they feel really dry. We're getting there. Tomorrow, refit the interior, do something with these bar ends, probably try and do something with them. Again, that's another one. I can order clips, but they're not going to get here for weeks, so somehow I've got to do something with them. I think that's it. Bar ends, exhaust done, interior can go back in. I guess tomorrow I'll wing it, see where we end up. Hang on, top day. I'll see you in the morning. So I want to keep moving on this one, so I'm going to throw the seats in. They're pretty dry, they feel pretty good, but we have no sunshine today and I just want to keep moving, so I've got no alternative. I'm going to throw them in, and if the sun comes out, I'll just bring him out, open the doors, let him dry that way. I just want to keep moving. Dash mats dry, it can go in. And floor's cleaned up. Well, almost. So seats in. Got to get an air cleaner. That's another thing I've got to do. But we'll keep moving. All works. That's not real good. Maybe put the headrest down, idiot. Yeah, I made that hard on myself, but anyhow, could have just put that headrest down. I think that's it. And I thought the sun was coming out, so I've wheeled him out here in the sun. But maybe not. And I had a wee moment on the end of these bars. I've actually bought the correct clips to go in the end of that bar, but they're actually going to take way too long to get here, as you'd expect. So for now, I've literally put one screw in the bottom there and just zip tied it back to the bracket, and that'll hold it just to get us into town. Almost forgot. It's gonna fit. Yep, it's gonna fit. Just a universal one. I couldn't find an XF one. Beautiful. And I just had him sitting out here drying. I thought it'd warm him up and change that oil, and that temperature seems to have settled right down. That's been idling for quite some time, and it's just steady now that I've got it timed properly, which who'd have thunk it. And she seems nice and smooth in the exhaust note. She's running quite well. And I wouldn't normally bother putting him on the hoist just to change the oil, but it's raining again. I'm starting to sound like I hate the rain. I don't hate the rain, I love the rain. And that oil wasn't too bad. It was bloody hot, but it wasn't too bad. It was a little discoloured, maybe due for a service, maybe sitting for a dozen years or however long. She's been a while. This filter is tight. And I only lifted this high because I got the bonnet up. It's good to recognise that, so you don't put the damn thing through the roof. I found this one pretty satisfying. Maybe not because it was a will it run after being parked for whatever it's... What was the problem it was parked for? Still don't know really, but I'm guessing timing. Righto. Now it's time. You with me on the timing thing? You following me? It's really hot on my forearm, like really, really hot. Can you? How can a fly do that? How does a fly do that? Can you even see what I'm doing? Is that in the way of this? Nope, it's not. Lose the extension, idiot. Sweating like a blind lesbian at a fish market. Stop jibbing on about timing. So that's it for another one. That's my XF. And that one is legitimately dragged out of a paddock and back on the road. And I've got a plan on this one. I'm going to drive it for a little while as a daily driver, but it is going to go up for sale. It's way too shiny for me, so somebody else is going to love it. And we've got some new cars coming and some older stuff you've seen before coming back. So anyway, thanks for hanging in there. I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.